Thank you, Dave. Yeah, I'm Sam. I'm a recovered addict. Um, yeah, thank you, Dave, for inviting me up here. It's really nice to be at a meeting that I've never been to before, and nice to see a few old faces and a few new ones. And really welcome, welcome, welcome. If you're in your first sort of week, first day, first 30, 60, 90 days, welcome to Cocaine Anonymous. When I arrived at my first meeting this time round, um, I didn't expect to be staying any more than sort of 8 minutes of the meeting. And by some miracle, I celebrated 8 years the other day. And that is through a lot of action, a lot of work, but involved me just being absolutely done, absolutely cooked at the start. And I was ready to make a change. Um, so I'll try not to go on too much about the sort of drinking and using part and the madness sort of part of it. But this program has allowed me to just, like we were saying outside, Dave, just to sort of grow up, to learn a new way to live, to be there for my friends and my family, not push everyone away like I did for years and years, to show up at my job, to become a bit more of a gentleman. Cocaine Anonymous has allowed me to do all that stuff, because Christ, I was trying on my own for many, many years and I couldn't muster it. But I come from like Basingstoke way, so sort of Basingstoke, Winchester, a little town called Alton, and there was loads of pubs there. I just remember there was two breweries in the town, so there was like 22 pubs in this little town, and still alcohol wasn't my first thing. It was a bag of glue behind the bike sheds. But I do just remember being quite sort of shy and retiring. I wasn't really the sort of look at me like center of attention sort of guy. I was much more sort of stood back. But yeah, just very shy and awkward. And I remember my little mate saying to me, like, come down the bike sheds like after school. And I did, and he was doing what he was doing with his bag, and I just joined in. I definitely didn't think, oh, this might not be bad. This might not be too good for you, Sam. But I just did it anyway. I didn't know that it sort of fixed something inside of me. I just tried it and liked it and kept doing it. And it led me on led me on a path to absolutely losing myself. All the time, looking around at the people that were close to me, like friends, family, stuff like that. Like they're all getting on with their lives. They're all flying off around the world and going on holiday and starting families and sort of getting married and stuff like that. And I just never felt that I could sort of attain that stuff. And, why would a woman want me when I was just locking myself in the back of my van and spending all my days in lay-bys and stuff like that? But I couldn't see it at the time. I was just a very lost little boy for a very long time. So it wasn't all misery and sort of depression. Like there was sort of cream fields and Glade and stuff like that. There was a few like parties along the way that I had good fun at, but all in all, when I was 16 and I lost my mum, I sort of believed that was why I was following this sort of downwards path. I didn't take a look at my sister, who had also lost her mum, and realised that she could like grieve and do things normally and get on with her life really and talk about it. And I couldn't. So I carried on following this path, and my first ever, the drugs I used sort of got harder and harder, and it doesn't matter what you've used. If you sat here in a Cocaine Anonymous meeting and there's sort of particular things that are problematic to you, then you probably need to be here. The drugs I was on involved a very lengthy detox. So it involved me living a very small life basically in like a mile square where I couldn't leave my local town in fear of like not making it to the chemist for the day and stuff like that. I was stood in this queue every single day, arguing with everyone else in the pharmacy about, oh yeah, oh, well they dropped this and they shouldn't have, and so I had that for years. 20 years of my life was just consumed by that. The first sort of taste of recovery I had, because I never really knew that anyone sort of stopped using in the circles that I was using in. People didn't really stop and go on to live happy lives. Like they used to die, and that's when they stopped, mainly. And so I'd never known, didn't know anything about recovery, and I was living in the back of my van. Dad says, he rings me one day and he says, Sam, you're going to rehab. And I was like, no, I'm all right, I'm okay. And he was like, look, I'm being stopped by people in the local high street that are really deeply concerned about you, mate. They keep saying to me, your son's going to die. And I knew I wasn't the right side of things, but I wasn't really aware of to the extent of how bad it was. And so I got taken to this treatment centre, and I'll never forget. I was sure that I was going to like Disneyland or somewhere like that, and I ended up in Luton. So I didn't need my Bermuda shorts and my towel after all. And we got there. Someone shunted this book over the table to me. I was like, this says Alcoholics Anonymous on it. Don't have a problem at all with alcohol. They said, well, you won't have any trouble giving it up. And I was like, well, no, that's not really my thing. They said, mate, you've got a problem with life. You've got a problem with this thing in here, you're thinking. And, after being offended, I sat in this treatment centre for 3 months. I was there for 3 months. I sort of did as they said. And I remember sitting in sort of circles, a little bit like this, where we'd go round and do a feelings check in the morning. And I would tell them I was so happy to be there and so grateful and massively optimistic. And it couldn't have been further from the truth, because when you sort of remove everything out of me, when you detox me and I'm just me, I really don't like it. And I'm not in a happy place, and I don't want to be there, but I'm going to smile and I'm going to tell you I'm fantastic, just to get you away from me and probably stop you asking questions. But I left that treatment centre with a little certificate. We'd done the sort of whole graduation thing where my dad and my sister came and we all hugged and everyone was crying and stuff like that. And I was like, I'm absolutely not getting into that mess again. You can mark my words. I will not go back to where I've come from. And lo and behold, a week later, that little thought popped into my head that, maybe I could just divide a bag of heroin up into the days of the week and use it safely. And it didn't work like that. And I was returning to that treatment centre to other people's, my sort of fellows' graduations, off of my head, when they were doing their like sort of passing out parade, and people were saying like, he's relapsed, he's off his head. And no, oh my God, no, how dare you say that? And because that's how I'd been used to doing it my whole entire life. I've been used to people saying, Sam, sort yourself out, do this. And and I'm going, no, it's not that way at all. I'd lied my way through my whole life. And to me, that was a normal way to react to what people were saying to me. So I went out and I used again for 9 months, and it was totally miserable. Frequent thoughts of suicide and wanting to end it all and not wanting to be here. And ended up with me finding a couple of quid down the back of my seat in my van, and that was my diesel money to get me to my first meeting. And I was really beaten up. I was looking forward to like having quite a big meeting where, you know, I could have hidden somewhere and people wouldn't sort of look at me or anything like that. But there was 4 people at that meeting, and thank God that the people in there were practicing the stuff that was written in that book, because there's every chance I would have just disappeared again. But they pounced on me, and I'll never forget a little Italian chap walking up to me, and straight away I'm sort of like judging everything and like, no, like how can I have anything in common with this guy? Like he's nothing like me. But we started telling a few stories, and I knew that he was exactly like me. And he come over quite bossy at first. He said, "This is your own group. I'm your sponsor, and you're making the teas." And I thought, no, I'm not well enough to make any teas. Like people should be making me a cuppa. But he assured me that nothing had changed if I adopted that attitude, and that I should try and help other people while I was here. And you know, everything was bewildering at the start. Like people were reciting lines out of that book. Like the last book I think I read was probably Spot the Dog when I was at school. So none of it made any sense. There's people talking about like allergies and spiritual problems and, you know, obsession I probably understood. But they were talking in a different language, and people were really like dumbed it down and put it into idiot for me so that I understood it. And you know, we had my first meeting, so my home group, we don't do it in there anymore. But when I started there, it was 6 minutes of meditation at the start of this meeting. And I just remember like trying to hold my breath for 6 minutes. So I didn't want anyone else to hear me breathe or move, or like I was sat there like I was wearing a crisp packet. I was just frozen with fear. I didn't skip into my first meeting of Cocaine Anonymous, that's for sure. And but thankfully, the guys that were in there inspired me. And one of the first things they said to me was, "Sam, if you put recovery beyond all else, and put this first, do it like your life depends on it, you will never ever have to drink and use again." And from that day to this, that is my truth. You know, everyone that started out in the room, like when I sat down at my first meeting this time round, isn't here. You know, there's only a scattering of a few of us. This is a life-threatening chronic illness, and like lots of people in this room would have known like friends, fellows, family members, you know, that have passed away due to this illness in one way or another. And it was expressed to me like from my first meeting onwards that this is life and death, Sam. Like if you believe this is life and death, then stay, do the steps, get a sponsor, and help out. Because this is the trenches, and by Christ, we need your help. So stick round here and help. And so I did. I detoxed in the rooms of Cocaine Anonymous. So, you know, many people have got many different stories about coming off different things. But take it from me, you do not need to go to, you know, a rehab facility or a stay-in sort of clinic. Like I detoxed in the rooms under the direction of a key worker. And of course, I always want to do it my way. Like, oh no, I'm going really slow this time. Oh no, it's going to be really quick this time. Yeah, oh, this is how I'm going to beat it this time. But for once, I just let this woman sort of guide me through it and did as she said. And I think being absolutely done and cooked and like holding my hands up and saying, look, I don't know what to do, put me in good stead, like in the early doors, really. And so, yeah, like we were going to conventions, all different sort of like sober raves and stuff like that, like up and down the country. And I just fell in with a real like few enthusiastic people. And yeah, we went everywhere. So I had a lengthy detox to do. As soon as I'd finished that, we were straight into the steps, and I'll never forget looking at the steps in one of my first meetings and thinking, oh my God, that is going to take years to get through that lot. And it didn't. It was a really quick process. And I do realise as well that there are many ways to skin a cat. Some people go slow, quick. I get that. But the way that worked for me is the way that we did it. My sponsor said, fill out this bit of your book. And I was waiting at his door like a Labrador, waiting to go and do that step work, because I was so scared to end up in the place that I'd ended up before I came to recovery. So we went through those steps. I won't take you through all of them, but somewhere between sort of 4 to 9, like something happened to me. I got invited back into the family home, and I'm sure my dad wasn't too convinced that this little stab at recovery was going to be any different to any of the other goes at recovery that I'd done before. But I got invited back into the home, and I remember finishing a meeting, getting back home, getting down on my knees at the end of my bed and saying a little prayer, something really simple like, thank you for a clean and sober day, God. As simple as that. And I just had this feeling inside that I wasn't doomed, like that life could possibly be better and things could get better. And I'd never had that feeling before. The only thing that maybe came close is when I was clucking and I had that gear in my hand, the dealer turned up, and I just had that momentary like, thank God for that. And that amplified. I had that at the bottom of my bed, and I just clung on to it. And people said it's some sort of a spiritual rearrangement that's happening inside of you. Like, I just started doing as my sponsor directed me to do, kept doing them suggestions, and really simple suggestions every day, the gratitude list, the calling people, the writing gratitude list, ringing 2 newcomers, get into my home group, get there early and leave late. Don't just breeze in a couple of minutes before and then leave before the meeting's ended. Stay there and help out. And all this seemingly irrelevant stuff came into play later on down the line. If I learned to make a phone call when I say I'm going to make a phone call, that helps me out with like work and relationships and family. At the time I just thought, oh, what, a minute late and you're not picking the phone up? Like, I just think that's out of order. I feel quite insulted. But it was all putting the groundwork in for me to like learn to grow up and function in society and become a half normal human being. But my journey from those early days until now has been littered with moments of peace, a lot of mistakes, inventory, a lot of it, ups and downs in life, many different things, but I've been able to navigate that stuff due to having a sponsor, having a God, and remaining transparent with my sponsor, and just doing the best I can, just simply doing the best I can. As I said, I've lost a lot of people on the way, and there's some very sad times, but the good times far outweigh it. I've been able to do some amazing things in recovery, going on holidays, getting some of my own work in, and being responsible enough, not just turning up at a job. I'm a carpenter, and I've got a lot of passion for my work. And, I used to turn up at jobs and take the money for the materials and then not turn up and, and fleece people, really. And I haven't done that in the last 8 years. I've been as upstanding as I could. But I really genuinely love my life today. I've been able to be a father in recovery as well. My little boy's 2 years old. Nothing teaches you patience and tolerance quite like a 2-year-old. But he's a lovely little boy. My missus is also in recovery, and we have a wonderful relationship today. We managed to get a mortgage the other day, and I could not save £5 when I turned up here at Cocaine Anonymous. And from a mortgage company to say, yeah, he's all right to pay back the biggest loan of his life essentially, is a huge thing. And it's only through like doing the treasury pot in here, like learning how to manage my money and stuff like that is the only reason I've been able to do that. So like anyone that's new, like in the room or on Zoom, welcome to Cocaine Anonymous. Please get involved. I hope your life does depend on it, because they tend to be the people that hang around and stay here. But yeah, thanks so much for inviting me up here this evening, Dave. It's nice to see you, and I think I'll leave it there.